had to learn. And if in order for us to, stay sitting in your seat, if not, I'm gonna give you a 0, I'm gonna send you to the principal. At home was the same. Like in my house was the same thing. It's like, if you don't do what I said, you go to a room or you don't go out. And so the way we have, even how we train our dogs and our pets is the same way. Our children is the same way. We have learned through fear instead of empowerment and love. And that's how now humanity, all this process that we're doing, is that we're reparenting ourselves in a different way. So instead of being drawn to fear and learn from fear, it's learning from love, it's learning from connection. It's learning and returning back to our heart and soul, because in the process, we went to the head and we valued the information. We begin to experience life through the eyes of explaining and labeling the experience instead of feeling the experience, instead of connecting with spirit and the spiritual experience of life and the beauty of simply life itself. And so this is a transformation that I believe, and this is my truth, it's not the truth, and it's not the only truth. This is my perspective of what I believe is the transformation that we're going through at a human level. Through our past learning, we took the heart and our soul out of life. And that's why there's a big crisis in humanity, in the world, because we're not connected to our emotional world. We're so identified by our thoughts. And in the process, we're also disconnected from the divine that we are, and that is all in all life. And so how this ties in our conversation is that it's we have been trained to want to control from the mind, from that disconnection of the heart and the divinity. We began to fear life. We began to fear, if you grew up in a religious family, we learned to fear even a God, right? And so from that sense, obviously our desire is going to want to control our outcome, control our own self, control others, because of that natural disconnection to that expansive energy and loving and benevolence energy of the divine and love. And so the question the second question that we're gonna dive in is to, okay, if control, behind the emotion of control is fear, then from fear being a core emotion, a primordial emotion, there's two primordial emotions from my perspective, that is fear or love. And from fear unfolds different emotions. And so if we dive into two, anxiety, which right now is amazing how much we actually live in a sense of anxiety in our life. So the basis of anxiety is that whatever I project into the future, I want it to happen now. And either I want it to happen now and I don't know if it's going to happen, or I'm afraid of what's going to happen in the future. And so I almost resist what I'm projecting in the future. So I'm afraid of what might happen in the future. And that's what activates that sense of anxiety. And so what unfolds from that is I try to manipulate my internal emotions, my internal world. And also it might come up that you try to manipulate your external world in a way. But ultimately at the core, it comes from this sense of that it takes you out of present moment. because you're already projecting into the future of something that might happen that you don't want it to happen, and you disconnect from the here and now. And that too is connected to the sense of how we have learned that from the system of, in order for me to be valued, feel safe, I need something from the external world to bring it to me. So for example, I need this job in order to feel valued. I need to have this certain amount of money in my bank account to feel safe. I need something externally to bring that sense internally that I'm not finding internally. That it's all the connection that we have learned to focus on the external instead of doing the cultivation of our internal landscape. And then the second emotion is anger, and so, or frustration. And this is that anger and frustration, it's a beautiful emotion. And I come from the belief that all emotions they're not good or bad. They're messengers. They're the language of your soul. And so we have learned to describe emotions as a positive emotion and a negative emotions. And we have labeled, again, from the mind, we have labeled emotions as, oh, happy is a good emotion, and anger is a bad emotion, and fear is a bad emotion. So in that, we're rejecting our own humanness, because we're sensitive beings, we're emotional beings, and we have misunderstood our guidance system. So our emotions are the language of our soul. It's just like the signaling in your car that is telling you you need oil. That's what it is. And so anger on itself, it's coming with a message that there's something that feels that it's at risk, that you have to protect and defend. Mm-hmm. And so in terms of control, there's a fear that something will happen. And when it happens, it activates the anger. So I don't want this to happen. And then it's happening. So I want this person, let's say, to behave a certain way. And when it happens, I activate anger. And so in the need, all in that experience is the need to control. I can't accept the other person or this experience. And so when it happens, I activates anger within me. And so it could be frustration as well. Like when you feel like there's a recurrent sense of frustration. And so the piece here is that there's behind control, there's a need. So yes, the emotion is fear, but behind there's a need for something to be a certain way. And that as well is what we have also learned, the need, continuous need to be a certain way, to have a certain thing. And so this constant need for something, the following the rabbit, or following the rabbit or following the carrot. So that's the constant need. And that is a way that is still from here, right? And so we have looked at how control manifests in our external world, and then control in our internal world is when, again, coming from this place of not accepting. So how do we control ourselves? We judge ourselves in whatever we're feeling, whatever is our internal experience, and we either avoid it, we repress it. And so that sense of controlling ourselves, obviously the control that we have learned and the control that we want to express in external, it's also the same control that we project within ourselves. And so how is the body of a person that lives in the sense of control?